This is Nagoya, Japan, and I've lived here for the past year. It's one of Japan's biggest cities, and I want to share what it's like living a more minimalist lifestyle in such a huge city. On YouTube, we always see the people that move out to the forest, start chopping wood, and learn to speak to spiders to find their peace. And it's pleasing to dream about, but difficult to do for most of us. Most jobs are in cities, our families and friends are in cities, and personally, I don't really want to deal with bears and mountain lions and all that. I like convenience, and I want to be able to make my own peace wherever I am. And that's what I've been learning to do over the past year. So I thought I'd share 4 parts of my life that I've learned to do that in today's video. Of course, I live in Japan, and that means some things may be different, but many more will be the same and useful to anyone that's trying to live a more simple, values-based life. But for context, before we begin though, I want to share a little about my relationship to possessions. I have to have certain furniture to exist while living and working to be at my best, like my desk and a bed. I have some filming gear for my passion, and I do have some things for organization, which I'll dive into how important that is here in Japan in a second. But if I were to rid myself of all of my furniture, everything including my painting and my computer screen at the back would all be able to fit into a single suitcase. And that's not intentional. I'm not trying to be the best minimalist or have as little things as possible. I'm simply a person that values experiences over things, my freedom, and I like building systems that make life easier and more reflective for myself. I think the best place to start is with the living space. For most people I know, to some degree, home organization and clutter is a problem. Having exposed cables laying around might be something easier to tolerate in a bigger apartment, but apartments in Japan are usually small, and definitely for the price, it's smaller in the cities. For me, being in a small, disorganized space makes me feel so off-balanced mentally that I had to develop systems to stay clutter-free. To adapt, I had to be mindful about each purchase and how they'd be useful, or what I already owned that could solve the same problem. As time went on, I adjusted and began seeing the benefits of smaller living. Less cleaning, less places to fill, and if I'm not rushing, air drying my clothes is a nice ritual, even though I'd still just prefer a dryer. But anyone that's ever moved out on their own can probably tell you that moving into a smaller space doesn't teach you the habits to keep it organized, orderly, and breathable. The desire to keep things tidy slowly turned into this hyper-organization period in my life where I wanted everything to fit perfectly as if I lived in a Jenga house. And thankfully, if there's anywhere in the world that it's great to be an organization freak, it's Japan. It's even too much at times. Sometimes I'll buy a snack and in the bag, each snack is individually wrapped, which is wasteful and bad for the environment, but I'm sure incredibly satisfying to someone that's a little bit OCD. To keep my own space organized, I have a couple of things that I'm going to share with you. I try to get good value for price or reuse things that I already own, but I always go with the visual layout of things over the savings, because to me, having my apartment feel like a space that's orderly when I live in a chaotic space like a city is priceless. I also live with a partner, so I'm not going to share what we do together. I'm just going to share how I maintain and keep my space minimal. I have these hanging shelves for my clothing, this little drawer set, this hook to keep my headphones, this box to hide my hard drive cables, tie straps and wraps for cables, these storage boxes, and this old broken cup for my pens because, well, it can do the job. And most of these things costed less than $5 in the major dollar stores in Japan. Learning environment design should be a basic life skill we teach. To create an atmosphere and feeling I want in my home while outdoor is chaotic and busy makes being in a city livable for someone like me who values peace. Those tiny adjustments make indoor a remedy to the big crowds and the lights. Something else that I've come to enjoy has been getting outside and going for mindful walks. Before I moved here, I'd rarely go for walks. I had a car, so I'd drive everywhere, and even before I had a car, my parents or my friends would drive me. I wouldn't usually be outside unless I had a reason to be. I don't know about you, but I feel as if the more I connect with technology, the less I'm connected to my human self. To be human to me is to create, to have ideas, to move, and to respond to things in the world. But with my phone in my pocket forever, a constant vacuum for my attention, and a car as the extension of my body from the moment I learned to drive, I feel as if I never gave my mind space to wander mentally or to allow my body to recover physically by having some time outdoors, just moving around, enjoying the atmosphere. Japanese cities are incredibly walkable, and if you have the convenience of being from a place that's also really walkable, then as a person that didn't have that luxury before, I'd strongly recommend you do it. Walking has become routine in my life. Getting offline, getting outside, popping on an audiobook or podcast I'd love to hear, and going for an hour-long walk while I learn something. Sometimes I'll go without any devices just to enjoy being out in the world. I find people in cities tend to go from location to location with this tunnel vision because the bustle and crowds can feel jarring. But they're only jarring if you're also trying to be in those places. If you're just embracing the sights and sounds around you, then at least to me, being in a crowd for just a moment isn't a problem. Something I've been trying to do to keep myself grounded in the present when I'm outdoors is to observe things as if I have to describe them to someone else. It brings my attention to the surroundings, and the tiny details I would have missed begin to show themselves. I literally feel how these small moments bring happiness to my life. But I will be honest with you though, it can be hit or miss in a city. I've seen a fair bit of dog shit I wish I didn't, so use this with care. When I'm not walking, I'm primarily using the subway because I don't have a car anymore, and I always carry my AirPods and smartphone with me. I know that in some parts of the world, the subway is a sketchy place, but generally in Japan, if you're not in Tokyo, the subway is a calm, respectful place. If you're using it just for travel, then it's super pleasant because people are speaking at a low enough volume that with your headphones on, you'll never hear anyone. You can zone into a podcast or a book. But when you use it for work, the silence in the morning and at the end of the workday is visibly a moment of peace for people. There is a calm that comes across the train in the mornings that has rubbed off on me. I use this silence in the mornings to set the tone for my day. I've been doing this writing activity called morning pages recently. It's basically you dump all of your thoughts onto 3 pages without censoring yourself. And it's supposed to calm you, reduce your anxiety, improve your creativity, and bring you closer to yourself. But since I'm using the subway and I can't guarantee that I'll get a seat, using a pen and paper is a bit cumbersome. So instead I use my smartphone, set a timer for 5 to 7 minutes depending on the morning, and I just write until the alarm goes off. This isn't a sponsor ad or anything like that. I just know a lot of people get utility from this. I myself get a lot of usefulness in grounding myself before I start my day by doing this activity. It's from a book called The Artist's Way. I'm sorry I can't remember the author's name right now, but you can definitely search that up if you're interested. Now we're back to my kitchen because another thing I want to touch on is how I at least try to keep my diet simple living in a city. I live abroad in a country that's well known for its culinary prowess, and what I'm about to share with you might surprise you. For the past 3 years, I've eaten the same thing every day. Yes, I know, it's boring, but when I think about keeping things simple, I don't think about reinventing the wheel with every meal. Having to walk down new grocery store aisles looking for things I haven't tried, or scanning hundreds of reviews on Google for a new restaurant to eat out at. When I think about keeping it simple, I think about the least effort for the most reward in my health, my energy, my body shape, and my time. I do go out on weekends and explore with food, but even then I try to keep things uncomplicated. I like making a single decision that I then get the reward from for months or years after. One challenge with eating simply while living in a city is decision fatigue and time wasting when shopping for groceries. There are so many supermarkets that you end up going to different places to get different things. One has the best priced veggies, another has the best baked goods, and another with the best condiment variety. But to me, Visiting 3 different grocery stores when shopping for the month is a lot of work, especially because they can all be affected by price fluctuations and seasonality, and then you have to reevaluate your entire shopping strategy. To me, I'd rather just save the mental space, reduce the decision fatigue, pay the couple of dollars extra, and get everything from one place. I know that's not something everyone can do, and being in Japan, where fresh, high-quality natural foods is an expectation of people, I have to acknowledge that food in a place like this is a privilege. At the same time, I'm from the Caribbean, and there it's very much the same. An abundance of healthy, natural foods. The only difference is how the changing seasons affect food availability. It's a problem I never dealt with at home, but most of you probably do have to deal with it. So my solution was to have 3 staple foods that really don't fluctuate that much in price that I can have with every meal, and to have 2 backup dishes in the event that they are unavailable. I've also simplified eating out, since that's a huge part of why people move to cities to begin with. When I initially moved to Japan, there were 3 meals that I would eat regardless of the season, and I really enjoyed. It was tonkatsu, sushi, and ramen. But I found that as I got busier, the only thing I would be able to enjoy in both a rush and slowly was ramen. So I told myself, why not just become an expert at ramen for the next couple of months? Anytime I was going out to eat by myself, I'd try a new ramen restaurant. That way, I wouldn't have to think about what to eat. I would always have different versions of one of my favorite foods, and the experience of each individual shop, the design, the atmosphere, and the flavor became more meaningful to me because I'd been seeing their competitors consistently. I even created a scoring system so I can confidently say that I know the best ramen in the city.